Hello, everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's topic because we're looking at something that has literally reshaped the way history is written. So let's just dive right in. We're tracking the digital evolution of a revolution. We're going to trace this really incredible journey from the physical, crowded streets of the past, where banners were actually made of fabric, to the virtual, totally borderless battlegrounds of today's fourth wave of feminism, where the banners, well, they're made of hashtags. It's just a fascinating transformation of how voices are heard and really how movements are built.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, the unfinished historical struggle. 2, the digital uprising. 3, hashtags as protest banners. 4, slacktivism, trolls, and backlash. And finally, number 5, writing history in real time. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get right to it.
Section 1. The unfinished historical struggle.
Now, to truly understand the digital revolution happening today, we absolutely have to look back at the earlier waves. These are the movements that gave activists the courage, the structure, and really the vocabulary to demand equality. Think of the feminist movement like the ocean. It acts in waves, right? With each era building directly on the momentum of the last. Back in the late 19th and early 20th century, the first wave emerged. Women like Emmeline Pankhurst and Susan B. Anthony were fighting a system where women were literally denied property rights and the right to vote. It was this long, grueling war of resilience that finally secured the ballot. Then, fueled by the massive cultural shifts of the 1960s and 70s, the second wave hit. Thinkers like Betty Friedan pushed hard for workplace equality, resulting in landmark wins like the Equal Pay Act, and they dragged issues like domestic violence completely out of the shadows. Fast forward to the 1990s, and the third wave surged. This wave reacted to earlier shortcomings by fully embracing pop culture, diversity, and one incredibly important new framework.
And that framework is intersectionality. Essentially, it's the concept that overlapping systems of discrimination, things like race, class, sexuality, and culture, mean that women experience oppression differently. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Articulated by figures like Kimberly Crenshaw during that third wave, this concept is just absolutely crucial. It really becomes the absolute backbone of the fourth wave's inclusivity, making sure the movement doesn't just speak for a single privileged group, but for everyone.
Moving on to Section 2, the digital uprising.
So by the early 2000s, and definitely by 2012, the internet was no longer just some luxury. It was a global network. It offered this completely unfiltered space where voices could gather way beyond physical borders. Now, traditional activism, that required years of organizing. We're talking printing pamphlets, organizing physical marches, slow legislative lobbying, and organizing campus protests. But digital activism leverages instant global reach. What took the suffragettes years to organize could suddenly happen at lightning speed. Viral videos, borderless social media. The fourth wave basically inherited the courage of the past, but transformed the method into something relentless and totally immediate.
A great example of this, back in 2012, we saw one of the earliest sparks of this playing out online, with the Everyday Sexism Project. It was launched by Laura Bates in the UK. It was basically a digital platform where women simply shared their personal stories of daily harassment. And the result? It was staggering. It completely transformed what society had often dismissed as isolated, rare incidents into a massive, undeniable global archive of systemic sexism. The internet just made the sheer scale of the issue completely impossible to ignore.
Which brings us to Section 3, hashtags as protest banners.
In this digital age, the humble hashtag went from being just a simple categorization tool on Twitter to a powerful viral rallying cry. It quite literally became the new fabric of protest. And this movement is highly decentralized and truly global. Of course, you have the Me Too hashtag, which sparked a massive global reckoning around sexual harassment. But this isn't just a Western phenomenon. In Nigeria, the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag focused the world's attention on human rights and education after the horrific Boko Haram kidnappings. Down in Latin America, Ni Una Menos became a powerful cry protesting femicide. And incredibly, in China, activists used the hashtag Rice Bunny, which actually phonetically mimics Me Too in Mandarin, to creatively bypass strict government censorship controls. It's amazing, really, and proves that digital activism can adapt and thrive pretty much anywhere.
Now, to really grasp the breathtaking scale of this digital organizing, I want you to consider this number, 500,000. That is the number of tweets carrying the Me Too hashtag in just its first 24 hours back in 2017, right after it exploded from its original coinage by Tarana Burke years earlier. 500,000 voices in one single day. History had just never witnessed activism moving at this kind of speed before.
And the movement tackles a massively broad array of issues too. The Yes All Women hashtag connected global experiences of misogyny. Time's Up pushed for systemic, concrete workplace reform. Why I Stayed dismantled the victim-blaming narratives that so often surround domestic violence. Say Her Name powerfully highlighted Black women facing police violence, ensuring their specific struggles weren't lost in the broader conversation. And He for She encouraged men to step up and actively participate in dismantling the patriarchy. The digital space allowed all of these complex, layered conversations to happen simultaneously.
Section 4. Slacktivism, Trolls and Backlash.
Naturally, with any major historical shift, there's going to be resistance and a whole lot of complexity. Critics of the fourth wave frequently point to this idea of slacktivism. Basically, they argue that this digital engagement is pretty superficial. The critique here is that low-effort actions, like sharing a post or retweeting a hashtag, end up acting as a substitute for real-world political organizing or concrete legislative reform. Skeptics rightly ask, does a viral tweet actually change a law? Now, supporters will argue that shifting public consciousness and gaining visibility is a totally crucial first step. But this tension between digital gestures and material, on-the-ground change is for sure a central debate of the era.
There's also a major undeniable structural issue at play, the digital divide. While the internet absolutely promises a global platform, technology can unfortunately end up amplifying privilege. Western movements easily gain international headlines and massive viral traction. Conversely, marginalized voices in the global south, who are often facing pressing life-or-death issues like forced marriages or a lack of basic health care, frequently receive far less attention. And why? Simply due to a lack of reliable internet access. If you aren't online, your voice is heavily muted in a digital revolution.
Furthermore, we have to acknowledge that the internet is a double-edged sword. The movement heavily wrestles with cancel culture. There's this fierce, ongoing debate over whether public shaming is a necessary tool for accountability or if it really just fosters hostility and division. Then there's the very real, very terrifying danger of online harassment. Activists frequently face coordinated troll armies, doxing, and severe threats that attempt to force them out of digital spaces entirely. And finally, state surveillance. The exact same platforms that empower citizens to speak up are often monitored by authorities, which turns spaces of digital resistance into spaces of deep vulnerability and even censorship. Section 5. Writing History in Real Time.
So, considering all of these incredible triumphs and these very significant challenges, we really need to look at the future legacy of this wave and how it has fundamentally democratized the way history itself is being recorded. There is an incredibly powerful idea at the heart of this source material. Feminism is not a single fight, it is a story of humanity itself. That beautifully captures the continuous, living tradition of this struggle. From the physical pamphlets of the suffragettes, all the way to the viral posts of today, it's not just a series of closed chapters. It is an ongoing narrative where each wave rises higher than the last, adapting perfectly to the tools of its time.
So what exactly comes next? Well, for the fourth wave to ensure lasting structural reform, there are several key steps it absolutely must navigate. Step 1, we have to preserve digital memory. Tweets and videos are incredibly fragile. If these platforms collapse, that history could just vanish. It must be intentionally archived. Step 2, the movement must translate all that viral outrage into actual institutional law. Awareness is fantastic, but it's not enough. Legal frameworks must actually adapt to protect equality. And step 3, we must confront biases in future tech. With artificial intelligence and complex algorithms already shaping our lives, the next wave is going to have to fight to ensure these new digital economies don't just hard-code old prejudices.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. Will we rise to continue the struggle? The story of this digital revolution is literally being written right now by every single individual who logs on, speaks out, and shares their truth. Future historians, they aren't just going to look at the actions of presidents and CEOs, they are going to look at the digital footprint of millions of everyday people. They will ask what role we played. I really hope this explainer has given you a clearer, much more structured understanding of exactly how this movement evolved into the digital space, and left you eager to explore more about the history unfolding right on our screens. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Keep learning and keep asking great questions.